Hello there, this is the Farming Today podcast with me, Kaz Graham, and in this edition we visit a scallop processing factory on the southwest coast of Scotland, hearing how one seafood business views prospects for the fishing industry. That's part of our week-long focus on commercial fishing. And farming underground, in a mine, a full kilometre below the Earth's surface.
We have a lot of ex-mine sites around the UK. Could we use this as an opportunity to increase access to fresh fruit and vegetables?
We'll have more on that coming up, but we start today in the garden. This year, the Royal Horticultural Society's annual show, usually at Hampton Court, has upped sticks and moves to the Badminton Estate in Gloucestershire. It's not just a good excuse for some of us to get out the floaty dress and sunhat for a summer's day out. Events like this are an important showcase for the commercial nurseries who grow and sell the plants that we buy for our gardens. Heather Simons has been to take a look.
The air is thick with a smell from these amazing lilies I'm just walking past. Whites, pinks, burgundies, and that incredible heady scent. I'm in the part of the show where the nurseries have all set up stalls, some of them clearly specialists, like this lily stall, over the way the Culinary Herb Company. And each stall has a tent to provide a bit of shade, but most of the flowers are out in the sunshine. I can see sales already taking place left, right and centre. I'll see if I can find a moment with a nursery owner for a chat.
My name's James Thomas and I own and run Brookside Nursery, and we're based in Tamworth in Staffordshire.
And you've got beautiful displays on your stall and in front of it with planters full of purple, pink, great big foliage. What kind of thing do you specialise in?
So this time of year we specialise in herbaceous perennials, things that will give you colour and interest year after year after year.
And how important are shows like RHS Badminton for your business?
So they're really important for our business because in the springtime, so running from about March up until the end of May, we're predominantly an online business, so we send smaller plug plants around the country. So when we're a bit quieter with that and we've got a bit more time in the summer at this time of year, that allows us to come along to shows and promote our brand and get our name around and talk to customers. It's great to speak to people and see them face to face.
And how much of your sales are actually through shows like this?
It's a bit of both. It's great to do the sales as well, so because we produce specifically for the shows but also sell the same plants online.
What do you make of the move to badminton?
So far so good, I'd say. It looks really well laid out. The show looks great. There seems to be good attendance and yeah, so far so good.
So far so hot as well. We are standing
yeah.
in beating sunshine.
It's very hot, yeah. And
obviously for you guys as humans, quite hot. But what about for the plants? What's this going to mean for you?
We just have to keep on top of the watering, so we're constantly watering. As before the show opens in the morning, we have to drench everything, and again when the show closes at night, we have to give everything a really good soaking and hope it survives in between.
Has it changed any of the preparation you've done for it? You know, is there anything you can do to keep these plants that are all in pots healthy, you know, change what's in them or anything like that?
Well, the big change, particularly for RHS shows this year, is everything has to be grown in peat-free compost, and that does cause extra considerations for the watering. Generally, peat-free compost uses a lot more water, needs more watering, so that's really the big consideration, and that is definitely an issue in this weather.
And how worried about it are you? Because the next few days are due to be very hot.
They're due to be very hot, yeah. So we think we're in control in terms of the watering, and we've changed our delivery schedule a little bit, so we're getting deliveries into the show every morning so that we have fresh stock all the time. It's more just the customers that we're more worried about, that they stay cool and are still inclined to buy from us.
Well, your plants are looking absolutely beautiful right now, so I hope the show goes really well for you.
Thank you very much.
That's James Thomas with Heather Simons. And the RHS show at Badminton runs until Sunday, if you fancy popping along. Now, we're taking a close look at commercial fishing all this week. And 10 years on from the Brexit vote, which led to the UK leaving the EU, some in the industry say that decision has had a lasting impact on their businesses, and not a good one. West Coast Sea Products, based in Kirkcudbright in southwest Scotland, is one of the UK's largest exporters of king and queen scallops. It's a family business started by John King in 1968, now run by his three grandchildren, Stuart, Alice and Callum. They've invested almost £10 million in recent years with the purchase of 2 new boats, and they'd like to make further investments in solar energy. But they say that the industry feels neglected and in need of more support. Laurie Carnacan has this report.
Stuart, what we have here, it's incredibly noisy and incredibly busy.
So what you're seeing here is quite a few king scallops being cut. The guy that you've got right next to you is actually the fastest cutter in the factory.
It's absolutely incredible. I mean, he looks like a man possessed.
He does, yeah.
We'll cut 22 kilo per hour.
22 kilo per hour, yeah.
That's more than a suitcase that you would take on your holidays worth of scallops per hour.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Why don't we get out of our health and safety gear and go and catch a seat somewhere a little bit quieter?
Yeah, why not?
We've just popped outside the factory. It's absolutely beautiful looking out onto Kirkcudbright Harbour Bridge here. Tell me how the EU regulations, Brexit, has impacted your business directly.
I think fishing access, it's worse than what it would have been if we were still in the EU. Needless environmental health certificates and sanitary checks at the border. If we were to send scallops today in the past, the customer would have them at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning in Boulogne, and then it would go for onward distribution. But now it's like basically lost a day, so you're having to be ultra careful with shelf life. You've got the added cost of exporting as well, so I think it was about 150k for 25 to 26 on paperwork alone.
Is there any change, is there any light at the end of the tunnel in terms of these, whether it's biosecurity checks or export tariffs?
Recently there's been an expression of interest to get closer ties with the EU, but I'm just hoping the eventual benefit that we get is that the phytosanitary checks are going to be lifted next year, and it will save us a lot of money with this needless paperwork. We know about 2 or 3 guys who've came out of the scallop business, good agents we work with for selling scallops, and they sold all their goods on to smaller customers, but it became too expensive and these guys lost their jobs, they lost their livelihoods because you cannot deal in small quantities to France anymore. So I think if they do enhance our situation just now, we'll be able to deal with the smaller customers in France again. You know, sending 50 kilos, 30 kilos of scallops here and there. It would be great to see that come back again.
The Fishing and Coastal Growth Fund was announced in October last year. Scotland was allocated £28 million from the £360 million pot.
Yes.
What were the feelings like from the industry in Scotland, and what are the feelings like now about that divvying up of the funds?
Just anger, and it's just nonsensical. Why would you divvy it up in such a way when we all know there's a higher percentage of fishing industry in Scotland, and it's no disrespect to English counterparts. Without sounding too political, I can see it with all the administration areas we work in for scallops, from Wales to Northern Ireland to Scotland to England, that we've become a fragmented country, and all this does is kind of drive that division.
Stuart, a lot of difficult things that we've spoken about. What's your outlook for the industry? It's clearly you're so passionate about what you do here.
Yeah, I want it to continue, Laurie, and I want to see my children and Alice and Callum's children, you know, come into it, and there's a future there. But I just fear sometimes the way that the government treats the industry, they don't want us. One thing's for sure, there's still scallops in the sea, and queen scallops, and there's still a very thirsty demand for scallops. Yeah, I'm in it for the long run.
That's Stuart King with Laurie Carnacan. Well, the Scottish Minister for Agriculture, Marine and the Islands, Jim Fairley, told us we have consistently supported the fishing and wider seafood sector, adding the decision to allocate less than 8% of the Fishing and Coastal Growth Fund to Scotland was made by the UK government, not the Scottish government. And a spokesperson from DEFRA told us UK fisheries funding and grant schemes are devolved to the Scottish government, with devolved governments receiving at least 20% more per person than the equivalent spending elsewhere in the UK. The Fishing and Coastal Growth Fund is additional money that has been allocated using Treasury guidelines to help modernise the fishing and seafood sector, build resilience and support coastal regeneration. Now, how practical would it be to grow our food underground? It's a question being investigated by researchers at the University of Sheffield who are growing crops more than a kilometre below ground level in a working mine near Whitby. They're collaborating with Farm Urban, a company that specialises in vertical farming, but usually going up vertically rather than down. And they reckon that this is the world's deepest vertical farm. Jacob Nichols, the project's lead academic, has been telling me what the mine's like.
It's actually owned by a company called ICL. They mine agricultural salts, so things like polyhalite. And where we're working is actually a Science and Technology Facilities Council site, which is a laboratory where they do research on things like dark matter and those sorts of space science fiction kind of particles and things like that.
Wow. And what are the conditions like?
So the conditions are why we're there. It's 1.1 kilometres underground. We're so much closer to the core of the Earth that there's a lot of ambient warmth there. Where we're working tends to be around about 25 degrees Celsius. And because it's a salt mine and all the walls are made out of salts, it's actually quite dry. So particularly good conditions for growing, and we don't have to worry about things like pests and disease so much because the ambient salinity of the surfaces and the reduced humidity reduce things like the opportunity for things like mould to form.
It seems really counterintuitive to try and grow crops underground out of natural sunlight. Tell me, why are you trying this?
This isn't a new idea. It's been around for a while. Some people have done modelling research on it where they've kind of taken the theoretical idea, but nobody's actually done it for real at this depth. We will incur the penalty of using lights for energy, but we won't have to worry about heating or HVAC, which is airflow and things like that, because that's already happening in the site. And the other side of it is that this is incredibly stable. That temperature stays at that level all the time, all year round. The work that we're doing is basically to collect as much data as possible to understand whether or not these systems are feasible. It might be that we get to the end of the project and go, no, it's not necessarily economically feasible given the cost of energy for lighting, but we'd also like to look at some other things like social return on investment. We have a lot of ex-mine sites around the UK, potentially in deprived areas and communities. Could we use this as an opportunity to increase access to fresh fruit and vegetables and for skilled labour as well?
Yeah, well, we do know that many big vertical farms above ground, ones that go upwards, have actually struggled to be commercially viable. Do you think this model could be?
I'm ever the optimist, and I think it can be because we'll be able to produce a really good understanding of how these systems work in the nitty-gritty. So how much labour they produce, how much energy they're consuming, how much biomass is coming out, and then work out ways that we can increase the efficiency of the systems.
And what are you trying to grow down in the mine?
We're starting with low-value products like lettuce and a couple of brassicas just to validate that the system works, but also gives us an opportunity to look at food safety to make sure there aren't any unexpected human pathogens knocking around, which is highly unlikely, but we'll be able to assess that. And then the next phase, we'll be looking to grow higher value crops, herbs, pak choi or kale, coriander, basil, and that sort of product.
When do you think the first potentially edible crops will be ready for harvest?
In about 3 weeks.
Will you be allowed to eat them?
Unofficially, yes, and I will certainly give them a taste. But the bulk of the material will be sent off for sampling.
And if you can make it work, what kind of potential do you think this underground farming could offer?
Huge potential. The thing is that controlled environment agriculture isn't the golden bullet to fix the world's food security issues. It needs to work with things that are happening in the conventional context. So when we start thinking about, in the UK, there's a lot of conflict about land use. And we can kind of navigate away from that if this is successful by going underground.
Jacob Nichols from the University of Sheffield. And that is it from us for today. I'm Kaz Graham. The producer is Rebecca Rooney. And Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.